Hello and welcome back to another one of my FPL videos, where in this video I'm going to be talking about my transfer plans ahead of game week 10. In a game week, of course, where I know a lot of people are going to be wildcarding for this game week. And if you are wildcarding this game week, be sure to check out the video I put out yesterday where I did a wildcard draft for game week 10, where I believe that is probably the best team you can get for game week 10 onwards. But anyway, there's going to be 4 different transfers here. All of them coincide with mostly with my team, with the exception of probably one player which I don't own, and there is another player I don't own, but obviously I do have his teammate. But the rest of the players that I'm going to be bringing in, of course, these are all players that I fancy bringing in, and I do also think all of you thinking about bringing players in, if you don't own these players, you should definitely look at bringing in these players in also. So then the first transfer I've got here is taking out James Maddison for Saka of Arsenal. Now, there's not too much difference between them in terms of form-wise. Obviously, both of them are in great form. Maddison's been amazing this season, by far the starting of the season. So it does seem a bit crazy if you want to take him out. I mean, the difference in price now is crazy to think it's only 0.4 million. So there's not actually that much in it. So it's a great time to do this transfer if you got money in the bank. I'm struggling to get money in the bank as of now, so I could actually take out some for Saka, but I do have 2 free transfers for my own team, so I can still actually make this transfer work myself. But yeah, there's a reason why I'm thinking about taking James Maddison out for Saka. Now, obviously, game week 10, they've both got nice fixtures, but I do think Arsenal have the better fixture. I think Sheffield, no disrespect to them, but that's one of the easier fixtures on the calendar. And for that to be out the Emirates, I do think he's going to get a lot of points that week. Whereas obviously Crystal Palace, yes, it's a nice fixture, but it's at Selhurst Park, and that's going to be a tough fixture to do. Game week 11, both of them have tough fixtures, to be fair. I wouldn't want either of those fixtures. Chelsea is probably the easier fixture because it is going to be at home for Spurs. But yeah, it's going to be a tough fixture for both of them. Whereas game week 12, again, they've both got nice fixtures. I'll just edge it and give it Arsenal because it's another promoted team against, and again, it's going to be at the Emirates, which is going to be an added bonus thing. And game week 13, they both got tough fixtures. Villa and Brentford wouldn't want to play either of those guys either. But when you look further ahead to this, obviously you can't see because I've only got it up to game week 13. But game week 14, Spurs have got Man City, then they've got West Ham and Newcastle. That is not a very nice set of fixtures. And then Arsenal are going to have Wolves, Luton and Villa, which is a much better set than Spurs. So that's why I wanted to take out a Spurs player and bring in an Arsenal player. And plus Saka, I mean, he's not always on penalties. Particularly when he's at home, he's on penalties. But he is the penalty taker, mostly for Arsenal, whereas James Maddison, I don't think he is. Don't quote me on that. I can't think off the top of my head who even is the Spurs penalty taker anymore now that Kane's gone. I'm assuming it's Son. But yeah, that's why I much prefer bringing in Saka in now rather than wait a bit longer, because I do think that Sheffield United fixture is going to be huge. So then the second transfer I've got on here is taking Alvarez of Man City for Jesus of Arsenal. So it's another Arsenal player that I'm suggesting we bring in. Now, I don't own Alvarez. I'm one of those idiots that has gone this long without owning him. Now, if you had him at 6.5 million, I'm sure you're going to be more reluctant to want to get rid of him because he's been an absolute machine for you. But the fixtures, you can't ignore the fixtures in this one, I'm afraid. So, Jesus, I mentioned it with Arsenal. They've got Sheffield United, Burnley, Wolves and Luton coming up in the next 6 fixtures. Those are just too good to ignore. Whereas Man City, I mean, they've got an absolute torrid time coming up. I know it's Man City, so it doesn't really make too much of a difference, which seems crazy to think, to be fair. But if we go through it, they've got Man United in game week 10. Now, they could win this game 5-0, I'm not going to lie. They could absolutely smash United, or Man United come away and steal all 3 points with a 1-0 victory somehow. That's very likely. Now, Bournemouth, obviously that's a nice fixture for Man City, and they could run riot. And obviously in game week 11, Arsenal got Newcastle, so you're probably thinking, well, it makes no sense. But after that, Man City have got Chelsea, they've got Liverpool, Spurs, and Aston Villa. That is an absolute nightmare. Whereas in that time, Arsenal are going to have Burnley, Brentford, Wolves, and Luton. It just makes perfect sense, right, to just take him out now and bring in Jesus. Now, Jesus He didn't play 90 minutes the other day, but we've got to remember he has come back from injury and he's going to have time from time to come off. But he is their starting forward currently right now, so that's why I think it's a great time to get Jesus as well, because the guy's only 3.5% owned, which is insane, and he's 7.9 million. So yes, he is a bit more expensive than Alvarez, so you might find it a bit tougher to get him. So you might have to look somewhere else to get some money. So like I said earlier, if you own Son and you want to get in Saka, you could do that. And then you could take out Alvarez if you own him as well and get in Jesus. And I think that would be a perfect combination. So that's why I'm suggesting Alvarez out for Jesus. Next on here, we've got Rashford out for Bowen. Now, I don't own Rashford. I actually own Fernandes. I've already got rid of Rashford. I've had enough of him already. But I could also suggest if you want to put Fernandes in here as well. I'm probably a little bit more reluctant at the minute to want to get rid of Fernandes. But if you want to get rid of him, I completely understand, because it's tough watching Man United right now. It really is. But like I said, if you want to get rid of him, I understand. And bringing in Bowen, I think, is a perfect transfer to make right now. Look at those fixtures we've got coming up. So Man United, they've got an absolute torrid time coming up in game week 10, Man City. So for sure, it just seems right to get rid of a Man United player. Now there is that issue though afterwards for Man United, because they do actually have a nice little run afterwards. They've got Fulham, Luton and Everton coming up. But then it does get a little bit tougher after. We'll have Newcastle and Chelsea in game weeks 14 and 15. But those three fixtures, Fulham, Luton and Everton, are really nice. So I completely understand why people want to keep a Man United attacker. But if you watch Rashford, right, it's just frustrating right now. The guy's taking multiple shots. He could be getting you multiple assists instead, because he's having a bad spell right now. It could change in game week 11 where he starts bagging again. But I'm hesitant. I mean, he scored for England the other week. He comes and plays against Sheffield United and he has a terrible time again. So it's a tough one to watch with him. So that's why I'm definitely suggesting you get rid of him now, where you can bring in a guy who's in top form again. This is the Jarrod Bowen of a couple of seasons ago. He's on fire again this season. He's in great form. He's getting highly owned now, so I definitely suggest getting on him early. He's got Everton in game week 10 and it's at home. I reckon they're going to ruin Everton in this game week. Game week 11, a little bit tougher against Brentford, but he can do bits against Brentford, I have no doubts. And then it's Forest and Burnley coming up after that. That is a good set of fixtures coming up. Yes, they will have some tougher fixtures afterwards possibly, but even in game week 14, they're going to have Crystal Palace. Then they've got Spurs, which is a tough fixture. But then they've got a couple of nice fixtures after that. So the fixtures long term for West Ham are great, to be fair. Whereas Man United, they go hot and cold. They've got 3 good ones, 2 tough ones, 3 good ones. So it makes sense to go for Jarrod Bowen. He's a 90 minutes man. He starts consistently. When Antonio comes off, he actually puts Jarrod Bowen in the forward role, which is, well, I'd say it's even better. It's just nice to have him up there. Yes, he's not always on penalties. That is a slight issue. But he's been sensational this season, and it seems daft to ignore him, particularly when we've got these fixtures coming up. So then the final transfer I've got on here is taking out Dan Burn for Simicast. Now, I personally do own Dan Burn, and I am really considering doing this transfer as well. Now, it might seem a bit silly because Newcastle, they've been in great form so far this season, well, particularly in the last 5 game weeks, but that's because they've had great fixtures, and that's coming to an end. I know they've got Wolves away in next game week, which seems a bit silly to want to do it now. Maybe hold off for game week 11. And then obviously they do have Bournemouth for game week 12, so you might want to go, but they've got Bournemouth in 12, so why not hold off till 13? Well, I fancy going in early on this one just because Simicast has got Forest and Luton in 10 and 11. Now, I know Simicast went off early against Everton last game week, but you got to remember that was his first game he started this season, and it was 0-0 at the time. Liverpool needed a goal, so that's why Klopp took him off as well. I do think he'll play more minutes in these next 2 games because I think Liverpool will dominate the ball a lot more and they will be like 2 goals up by half time possibly. So I do think he'll be a great option. He's 4.5 million, so you will get 0.1 mil if you bought Dan Burn at 4.5 million. So there's also that to look at. And obviously, Robertson's out until the new year. So you've got plenty of time to have Tsimikas as well. They've got a good run of fixtures long term, Liverpool. Yes, they've got a couple of tough ones in 12 and 13 against Brentford and Man City. But after that, it's Fulham, Sheffield and Crystal Palace coming up. So they've got a good run after that as well. So it seems to make a lot more sense because Liverpool's long-term fixtures are better than Newcastle. So that's why I think maybe getting rid of Dan Burn. And if you got, like me, got to Kieran Trippier, you might. There's no need really to go double Newcastle when you've already got one Newcastle defender. So you got one guy that will get you clean sheets in those games against like Wolves and Bournemouth, and then you can also get a guy who's going to get clean sheets against Forest and Luton. Now that obviously makes no sense. You're probably thinking, but I may as well have clean sheets for both Wolves and Bournemouth, but you can't guarantee it. So it's better to have one of each team just in case. And I do think it'll be a good transfer. Like I said, yes, he went off early against Everton and Tsimikas, but I don't think that's going to happen every game week. And there you have it then for this video. So those are the transfers that I'm thinking about doing for game week 10. Obviously, I can't do all of them, which is a shame because I would do. But, you know, I could do a -4 and do 3 of those 4 that I've mentioned, but the chances of me doing that are slim because I'm reluctant to get rid of my Man United player. But for sure, I will be making 2 transfers because those other 3, Tsimikas, Bowen and Saka, they've got such good fixtures for game week 10 and onwards that I really want to get one of those, or at least 2 of those players in for this game week. But let me know what you think for this video. Let me know what transfers that you're thinking about doing and what players you're thinking I'm missing out on. Who is there who's got great fixtures I've not even mentioned so far. Be sure to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget as well to check out my wildcard video that I put out yesterday. And I'll see you all on the next one.